Andrew, pronouns he, him, from New Jersey, and I will never do the thing Forrest does where I do his little acronym thing, so quit asking. He's a theist, and he also wants to explain why women need Christ. Andrew, you're on Chewed Gum. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Andrew.
Awesome. Yeah, we can hear you. You're a little bit muffly, so if you're on speaker, maybe try taking us off speaker. But we can hear you a little bit. Just make sure you speak clearly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. I think women need Christ. I just think that I think they just have better outcomes in society. You know, women who follow Christ. If you look at the stats, women who follow Christ, especially, they tend to have less mental illness, less kids out of wedlock, less STDs, things like that. And I think that that's my main contention on why women should follow Christ, because being promiscuous is not working out too well for them. So.
Taylor, you take point.
I just don't know if there's actually statistics that religious women have less STDs and stuff like that. I just don't know if that's true. But what if the promiscuous thing is like so important to you that women aren't that, but other women don't care about that and they prioritize different things to have a happy, healthy life? Do you ever think about that view of it?
Can you repeat that again? It was hard to hear you a little bit.
Yeah, so it seems like your version of a woman being a good woman or having better outcomes, the big thing is them not being promiscuous or whatever you want to call it. What if what if different women prioritize different things? What if they hold different morals and values, but they have a really happy, healthy life just differently than a Christian does?
I mean, I guess they can have a happy, healthy life without being a Christian. I'm not saying that atheists they can't be moral people, but I even Christians who self-ID as Christians, they're particularly don't have the best outcomes a lot of the times either. What I'm talking about when you look into a lot of the Pew Research. The ones who take the faith actually seriously, the one who give tithes, who actually go to church frequently, they tend to have the best outcomes. And it's like with homosexuality, there's so much disease when it comes to homosexuals. AIDS is very, very high amongst lesbians. Domestic violence is extremely high. So I just think that promoting those things in our society and their reproductive dead ends, they don't reproduce either. So I just think promoting those things in our
But this thing of you're going based off of your morals and values. What is a good outcome? Do you know what I'm saying? Somebody else's good outcome could be, I stay single for my whole life, or I have partners here and there, or I have a happy marriage with someone has the same sex as me, and it's great, and I live a happy, healthy life. You're have you ever thought about the fact that you're just going based off of what you think a good outcome is? Because for someone's good outcome could be another person's nightmare. I know a lot of Christian women that their good outcome is quite literally my personal nightmare. And I'm not exaggerating with that. Them getting married at age 18, them having 8 kids, them do church every Sunday, submitting to their husband, whatever. That's my freaking nightmare. So I wouldn't be happy or healthy.
No, I'm not saying you should have kids at 18, but what I am saying, I think women should have kids when they're at their most fertile, when they're in their 20s, and then pushing off kids in their early because they have the likelihood of them having kids in their 30s is very low, especially in their mid-30s.
Yeah, but why do we have 40s to have kids?
Because we have a reproduction crisis.
But why should I care about that?
I mean, do you care about civilization thriving?
I think we're gonna end eventually, so it's not like no, I'm not like concerned with like repopulating the earth. Me personally, I can understand like I guess a case for it, but what about the fact that if I had a biological child, I would be very unhappy and not live like a fulfilling life?
Why would you be unhappy with a child?
Because
Can you answer that?
I do not want the child. Yeah, I do not want the child. I don't want to go through the process of pregnancy. I don't want to raise the child. I would be unhappy. It wouldn't be something that would make me feel fulfilled.
So if your only thing is just hedonism, it's just, no duties, no nothing to the society. It's just all, sex,
Hold
drugs,
on,
rock and roll, and
hold on, Andrew. That's crazy. How does me not having a kid equal to me just like being a POS and just like being a drug addict and drinking and only caring about myself? That's insane. That's an insane thing to say. Like you act like
well,
I can't have relationships with people or volunteer at organizations, which I do, or care about my community or care about what happens in this country. I have all of those things in my life and I don't have a kid and I barely drink. I don't do drugs. Like I'm in a marriage. Like I don't know what we're talking about here.
Okay, let me ask this. Do you have sex with a bunch of dudes?
Yeah, Taylor.
I just told you I'm married, but even if I did, it wouldn't mean shit to me. That wouldn't mean that I'm not living a good life. Because I know people who have a good life and a good time doing it and having a great time and they're healthy. So
you use
that
this
wouldn't
word
mean
good.
anything
What does
to me.
good mean? Okay, what does the word good mean to you?
I think it's whatever. I think that as long as you're not hurting people and causing a lot of harm, that you can decide what your purpose is. And I think that's just as valid as a Christian saying what their purpose is.
So you're a harm reductionist? Like you're basically out like a consequentialist. You believe in like outcomes. Like so long as you're not harming anybody, it's okay to do. So I want to ask this: if somebody was to dig up their grandmother's corpse to have sex with it, would you be okay with that?
Would I be okay with it? Well, or like isn't the point of not doing that?
Let's even say they give consent. The grandmother says, "Hey, you can have sex with my body when I die." And
She's dead.
you got a
That's
family
the problem. She's dead. That's the problem. She's dead. And also, she probably has loved ones that wouldn't find that very respectful and weird.
Andrew, I don't particularly, I don't personally find these kinds of questions very helpful. This is like when people are like, would it be okay to like shoot a baby in the face if it would save 100 people or if it would save 1,000 people? It's like, I don't feel like playing. This is just me. Maybe Taylor's different, but I don't feel like playing. I don't find there to be a use in playing trolley problems like this because there's no actual tangible conversation to be had because no one is trying to dig, or no one that I know, maybe you roll with a different crowd, but no one I know is trying to dig up their grandmother and have sex with them. This isn't something that's happening. In the background, though, of this conversation, I was doing a little bit of Googling around. And while there is a statistically significant bias towards religious people in having a lower rate of STDs, there is also a statistically significant bias towards nominally evangelical people, husbands in particular, in beating their wives in domestic violence. In part because it's associated or thought to be associated. I don't think this is unfair speculation, but it's worth mentioning with sort of traditionally patriarchal gender roles and things like that. Wives submit to your husband, things of that nature. So if that's the case, and you want to, we could sit and play trolley problems all day long. I could say, well, what's worse, having the crap beat out of you by your husband or having herpes? You know what I mean? Like we could sit around and play these kinds of games all day long. But the fact of the matter is some religions are associated with some good things and some religions, or being irreligious, are associated with some bad things. What I personally want to prioritize is the freedom of people to do what they want as long as it's not hurting anybody else. And I want to bring about human prospering in that way. And to that end, and this is the last thing that I'll say, because I was Googling things that you were saying in the background, because I don't know, I was unfamiliar with the statistics surrounding this, but the average age in 2023 for a woman in the United States to have her first child was 29.6. That's almost 30, right? So, women are still having children. They tend to have them later in life. And children that are had later in life tend to be associated with more socioeconomic stability. So those kids get more resources. They go to better schools. They have more attentive parents. There are a lot of positives associated with that. So my question then to you is sort of in the light of that, are we wanting a quality thing or a quantity thing here? Is the important thing to you finding positive things to associate with the religion that you already have? Or are we looking for actually optimizing the human experience for the most amount of people, which personally I believe is maximizing freedoms as long as they don't hurt other people, whether that's who you love or the God that you do or don't believe in or what you eat or whatever?
You said a lot there. I do agree
I did. I'm sorry.
that,
I kind of bombarded you.
Yeah, it's okay. When it comes to, men beating their wives in marriage, I get what you're saying, but the vast majority of husbands don't beat their wives. Most of the domestic violence is happening from women who have side dudes and boyfriends and not their husbands, and another thing is that even like when it comes to going to school and stuff, I mean, even the women who are educated, they're still not having kids. I hear a lot of women say, "Oh, well, I want to be financially stable. I want to be, I want to have a good income for when I get older or whatever." But even then, the people who have the most kids are the poor and the religious. The most highly educated women, the ones who you want to see have kids, they're not having kids. Like most secular women, they prioritize things like, their career and jobs and then a lot of them also have a lot of abortions. I know in 2023, especially amongst Black women, they have something like almost 630,000 abortions. That is absolutely wild, and I don't think that's good for society. I don't think, promoting homosexuality is good for society, in my opinion. Now, I think in terms of law, I'm not saying pass any kind of legislation, but I'm saying a more I want to see more promotion for traditional family values. You don't even necessarily got to be religious, but just promoting family values and stuff like that. That's all.
So I hear you. I do disagree with almost all that you said, but what I do agree with is that there are statistics that you've stated that I'm going to take you at your word here. And there are potential problems there, right? Like if we ask the question, why aren't people having kids? Like, why aren't people having kids anymore? If you look at the surveys on this kind of thing, and I don't, I think that if you don't want to have kids, you shouldn't have kids. The last people that should be having kids are the people who don't want kids. And I know plenty of men and women who aren't planning on having kids at all. I don't know if I'm going to have kids yet. I might not. My husband and I haven't decided. But the primary reason why people don't have kids is because they lack financial stability. Right? Sometimes they do it because they get educated and they're like, I don't feel like putting my body through that because pregnancy is incredibly risky, especially in the United States, which has one of the worst maternal mortality rates in the Western world. I mean, it doesn't always, but it can wreck your body. I mean, it can cause your teeth to fall out. It can rip you from your V to your A. It can cause incontinence. It can cause all sorts of different things that maybe you just don't want to put your body through. But I think from your perspective, if what you're looking for and what I'm picking up on is that you're concerned about the birth rate being low. First of all, I don't think encouraging homosexuality is going to impact the birth rate at all because gay people aren't going to turn around and start having heterosexual sex. I don't think that they're not going to suddenly turn around and start contributing to this a rising birth rate. So I don't think that that's logical. But if you want to increase the birth rate, here's how you do it. You provide institutional support for parents across the United States because people can't afford to have kids. People can't afford to buy their first house in this country. So if we want people having kids, what we need is some kind of actual institutional support for new parents so that they have a place to raise their kids, that they have safe schools to send them to, that they have healthcare to provide them with all of their vaccines or medications that they need. We need free lunches provided at those public schools for them so that if they are financially unstable, they don't feel, and this should be especially a hallmark for people of your perspective, so that they don't feel like if they had it, like they don't feel like they need to have an abortion or whatever because they can't provide for their kids, which is a massive reason why some people, and people should be able to have an abortion for whatever reason. That's none of my business. But that's a huge portion of women who get abortions is because they can't afford to take care of themselves, let alone a child. They don't want to put their bodies through it. Sometimes they're young. I mean, women's bodies, you mentioned this earlier, and I'm an evolutionary biologist of sorts. So what I'll say is that a woman's body birth is a perilous thing at any stage, but the pelvis itself actually isn't well equipped to pass a child through the pelvic inlet until a woman is like 18 to 20. And that's earliest, right? Young women should not be having kids for a myriad of different reasons, not the least of which that it is incredibly dangerous for them. Anyways, the long story short is if you're concerned about birth rates, and I'm personally not, I mean, I see infrastructural issues down the line there, but I think that we can meet those with institutional change. But if you're concerned about it, I think that you shouldn't be worried about promoting traditional values because that is not what is keeping people my age from having kids. It's lack of support.
Well, can I ask this? Then, if that's the case, if women need all this financial support and help, why is it that the poorest people in America have them? Yeah, the poorest people have the most kids, and I think the reason why there's such a high mortality rate amongst women is because they crank out kids in their late 20s and 30s. That is the problem. Their bodies in their mid 20s to early 20s are the best years for having kids. And women give up their most fertile years for education, for getting psychology degrees and sociology degrees and African studies and all this other stuff that they're going to never use in real life. It's just a giant money suck from these colleges, and they get all these loans and they put themselves in all this debt. And most of them don't graduate with these degrees. Yeah.
Andrew, are you confused about why people in poverty tend to have more kids and educated women tend to have less or later in life? Are you confused about that?
I'm not confused about it. I know why they do it.
Okay.
Number one, the reason why they do it is a lot of the times it's because of, it depends. It's never one answer. It's a whole bunch of, some people are just just driven by complete lust. Some people just want kids because they feel that they're getting old and they don't want to be alone, or they see their friends having kids, so they just have the kids to get it out the way. It's a bunch of different reasons. There's no one, simple solution to it. But I just think that secularism, as because like all Western nations are below replacement, like all of them. We have to pull immigrants from third world countries just to boost our own immigration because the birth rate.
Well, we're doing the opposite of that right now.
So real quick,
we have 330 million.
There's a really interesting trend. Like I think it's important to point this out, right? The reason people had more kids in the past is because so many kids died, right? Like women had a lot of kids, families had a lot of kids because mortality for kids was just through the. At some points, we're talking about excess of 50% of kids that are born don't reach their fifth birthday or something along those lines. There's probably a tighter statistic out there, but if you go back further to humans pre-industrial, women aren't having like 20 kids. They're not having like 10 kids. They're having a handful of kids, but they have kids when they want to have kids in most hunter-gatherer societies. And that's just the way that it is, right? Like it's not the natural state. And even if it was, it wouldn't matter. That's fallacious in and of itself, but it's not the natural state for women to have baby after baby after baby after baby. And the fertile years for a woman are like, if you want to talk about it at base, sort of best rate at having a healthy child, egg quality doesn't typically decline until after 30. So it's not your early to mid 20s that are the best child rearing years. If you want to look at the actual science behind this, and again, in my opinion, none of this matters, but the science and being accurate in the science is something that's important to me. So I think it's worth pointing out.
Is the caller driving?
I don't know.
Andrew,
Andrew,
are
you
you
driving?
Sorry,
driving?
you cut out.
Are you driving?
No, I'm not. You cut out. No, I'm not. You cut out a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. Just don't do the call and drive because that's dangerous. The years that are safest and healthiest for a woman to have a child, if she wants to do that, are like in between 20 and 35, 36. Really, you can push it upwards to 40. And recent studies have shown that mutations that occur in the gametes are actually more common after 30 in men as compared to women. So it's sort of it takes two to tango kind of situation. I'm not saying that the stress of a biological clock, quote unquote, isn't real, but I'm saying that at the end of the day, if birth rate is something that you're concerned about, there's a way to fix this, and it's actual institutional change. But it's never going to go, institutional change is never going to get women back to having 10 kids or 5 kids even, because as it turns out, pregnancy is not like fun. Like most women who are pregnant, I mean, ask the women in your life, like what pregnancy was like. I mean, it tends to be great because you get a kid out of it if you want a kid. But outside of that, pregnancy can be absolute hell on your body. So if you don't have to, and you can ensure that the 3 kids that you have are going to survive instead of having 8 and still only having 3 at the end because it's the Industrial Revolution and 5 of them kicked the bucket before they were 5, you're just going to have 3. And I think that's okay. Like we don't need to have a permanent increase of people on the planet. Eventually, and in fact, I'll get on my soapbox here for a minute. There's not infrastructure globally for a continued increase of humans on the planet anyways. Eventually, we're going to run out of resources, and there's not going to be enough for everybody to go around. So getting populations not decreasing necessarily, but like there's no need for us to continue on this up, everybody has a million kids kind of trajectory. And I think truly that, you need to ask yourself what the problem you actually have here is, because and maybe I'm misreading you, but the vibe that I'm getting is that it's not really a birth rate issue for you. It's a traditional family values issue that's cloaked in a birth rate excuse. And maybe I'm totally off base, but because we keep offering these solutions to the problems that would fix the issue at hand, but then you come back to, well, women are sleeping around, and they're getting all of these abortions, and people are being gay and stuff like that ultimately have very little to do with the point, which was that it's better to be Christian. To me, it sounds more like you think it's better, but that's a very different thing than it being better. That's all I have to say.
Well,
We still have one more call we got to take, Andrew. So, that's my closing thoughts. I'm going to boot it to Taylor, and then you can have a wrap your thoughts up here at the end, and then we're going to move on. Taylor?
Yes, ma'am.
Not much. Just I think what kind of what Erika said, just like what is good for you isn't always good for other people. And sometimes I don't think everything is as it seems. Like when you say that a Christian woman is less likely to have stuff like mental illness, I know this from growing up Christian. It's because of the stigma, being stigmatized for that, or that having a stigma. Sorry, I can't talk. And Christians saying things like all you have to do is have a better relationship with God, or all you have to do is some kind of spiritual thing and it'll be better. Or people get shamed because that says that they're not having a good enough relationship with God. I've seen that happen time and time again with Christian women. So it's not like they don't have mental illness. It's that it's undiagnosed and they don't want to get help because of different stereotypes. So all I'm saying is, when stuff is reported like that, sometimes it's not as it seems because of the belief system and what they're willing to do for themselves or other people. And that's all I really have to say.
Andrew,
Okay,
final
so,
thoughts before we head on out? Hit the old dusty trail?
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say. I just wanted to, call in and give my thoughts. I mean, it's my first time ever calling in. I watched the show a lot, but I didn't want to stumble over my words. I get a lot of brain fog, and, that's all I wanted to say. But it was nice talking to y'all.
Hey, man, it happens. And by all means, my camera just gave out. Hold on, I'll fix my camera in a second. Thanks for calling in, and don't worry about. I stumble over my words all the time. What I will say is that if you're super interested, we got a ton of different shows here on the line. I'm sure people would be experts who are more attuned to this topic than me would be happy to chat with you more about it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Take
Andrew.
care.
Yeah.
At least I paused on a flattering frame here, or I guess it could be worse. All right, I'm trying to fix my camera. In the meantime, you can watch me be befuddled. Although this is my favorite expression for some of the calls today.
Hello, and that was, if I had to say, probably the worst clip I have ever seen on the line. Frankly, that was terrible because they say a lot of facts, but we have alternative facts on our side. Now, do remember that if you are seeing me next to some woman who, frankly, not impressed, but if she were to laugh, that would be an endorsement of me, Donald Trump. A laugh is an endorsement, so do not smile or your face will crack. Don't do it. You can't do it. Okay, I really thought she would break by now, so it's kind of ruining the bit I'm trying to do here. But you can like, you can subscribe. Oh, there it is. She endorsed me.